All right, Bob Brown again. So here's the question everyone seems to want to know. How did John Brzenk train? That's a simple question. Whether I think it was the best way to train or not, that's another story. But basically for 20 years, John had come to practice and, he'd grab a hold of somebody and he would pick how he's going to work that day, top roll, hook, whatever. And he would just hold us and we would do anything we wanted. And eventually we'd quit. And then John would grab the next one and hold him and let him do anything he wanted. And then eventually he'd quit. And John would just keep doing that until eventually John got super tired and eventually it's, a really hard match and he'd try to hold it off and eventually he'd lose. Okay? That's a max effort. It just took him a minute to get there, or several guys to get there, but he got to a max effort. And then he'd go sit down for 15 minutes or whatever. And then he'd get up and do it again. Back when it was me and Kevin Bongard and his brother Bill and Mark Valenzuela and Ed Arnold or Ed Goebel, guys you don't know their names, we'd only have to go around twice, and we could get John to be pretty tired and lose. And he would do that, 2, 3, 4 times and he'd go home. Sometimes if he really wanted to work his, let's say his wrist, he would, I'd be arm wrestling with him trying to take his wrist and he'd give me his wrist and then take it back and give me his wrist and then take it back and give me, but he always kind of stayed in that same area. If he wanted to work a hook, he'd just hold in a hook. If he wanted to work the offensive side, he'd just hold here and let us do whatever we want. If he wanted to work defense, he'd just hold there and let us do whatever we want. Okay? Now sometimes, and this was to me the most fun, is we would, he'd want to do like a single rep mat, like a 100% effort, but have it be a very short period of time. And so I would grab him with 2 hands and I'd be like, what do you want to do? He'd say, okay, he was going to work back pressure. So I'd grab him with 2 hands like this and he would fire as long and as hard as he could. And I'm maybe giving a little pressure on his fingers to try to get that hand tired. And he would go for, like I said, as long as hard as he could, or he'd stop. But then here's the fun part, is sometimes it'd be like, all right, John, I'm gonna grab you with 2 hands and you just go, you can do anything you want, John. And I'm going to hold you with 2 hands until I think I can let go and then have a match. And there's so many times I'd be holding them and be like, oh no, I can't do it yet. And oh my God, I can't do it yet. And then finally we'd get to a point where his hand was tired enough and I could let go. And man, we've got a match going on. And my adrenaline would spike because I'd think, whoa, I've got a shot here at beating John. And John adrenaline would spike because like every arm wrestler, he don't like to lose. And you get a little adrenaline in it. But that's basically what John did. He would just hold everyone till they quit, until he got tired. He'd go sit down for 15 minutes, he'd get back up and he'd do it again. So he was hitting maximal effort every single week. He went to absolute failure every single week. Sometimes it would take him a minute to get there because he'd have to go through a whole bunch of arm wrestlers. And sometimes it wouldn't take as long because we'd be pulling him with 2 hands. But that's basically what he did. Hope you enjoyed it.